I want to give you a short presentation to give you an idea as to what geography is. Already this year we've covered a huge number of topics. Only seeing you one period a week, we try to cover as many topics as possible in order to give you a good idea as to what geography is as a subject. So hopefully this presentation is just going over old ground, but it'll be really useful to summarise everything in order for you to make a good informed decision as to whether geography is a subject you'd like to take on into S3 and beyond. So, some of the topics you've studied this far, some of these you might still have to cover this year. We've looked at migration and refugees in the Mediterranean in 2015. We've looked at hunting, trophy hunting in Scotland and beyond. Looking at some of the news headlines that have been seen over the last couple of years that maybe have drawn your attention to this issue. Very controversial, and it's also a global debate that's going on. We looked at mining, the economic benefits it has in an area, and the environmental harm. We looked at shanty towns, using the favelas in Rio and Brazil as an example. We looked at the formation of waterfalls, the formation and extraction of diamonds, linking it back to the mining topic. We looked at extreme weather in the UK and beyond. More recently, we've been looking at the themes of sustainability and climate change, these huge issues that face us right now. That's going to fall. The burden of these issues is going to fall onto your generation to solve. Some of the topics we've still got to study this year, some you maybe have already touched on in class. Easter Island, looking at the lessons of a society that did not live in a sustainable way. Looking at poverty, ending world hunger, gender inequalities, and the impact improving gender inequalities can have on a country's development. Looked at plastic pollution, primarily focusing on microplastics. Looked at clean energy production, sustainable food production, improving life expectancy, and climate action. Some of you will have covered these topics already. Some of you will still have to cover these in the remaining time we have in S2. Hopefully from the last couple of slides you've seen, and you can agree with the statement here, that geography is one of the most varied subjects on the planet. The broad range of topics that apply to very, very current situations and events in the world make it a very, very appealing subject for those that like variety. It also is a subject that's really valued by employers and universities and colleges because of the varied content knowledge, but also the skills that are developed within geography. I'll come on to that later on. It's one of the most visual subjects on the planet. Looking at physical landscapes, like you can see here, the formation of these physical landscapes over geological timescales, but also urban environments. And it's one of the most vital subjects on the planet as well. Looking at issues that will shape our future, sustainability and climate change. Issues that have been caused by my generation and the generations before me, that the burden of these issues is now falling on you to deal with. Your generation will be the ones that find the solutions to these problems. Now, geography will equip you with the knowledge and skills to go out into the wider world with an ability to come up with these solutions. Throughout this presentation, there'll be a number of slides that I encourage you to pause and have a read through in a wee bit more detail. This slide here illustrates the huge variety of topics, university progression pathways, skills, and other subjects that link in with geography. If you were to study geography in S3 and beyond, you would look at the following topics. The world's development, looking at developing and developed countries. What are the differences in standard of life, and how does you lift developing countries out of that developing state and progress in their phase of development. Look at urbanisation, the problems that face urban environments around the world, both in developed and developing countries. Look at populations and demographic indicators that illustrate a population's level of development. Look at how different populations use resources and how countries' economic activities impact the people that live there. In terms of physical geography, we look at earthquakes, volcanoes, glaciers, weather, climate, rivers, floods, coasts, geology, soil formations, and many, many more. And we link that back to how this impacts the people living in the areas affected by these features. The skills in geography are very, very transferable. Investigating issues, collecting information, analysing it, drawing conclusions and sharing that in a number of different ways are skills that are very, very important for geography, but can be applied to a huge different variety of subjects and career pathways outside of the school environment. A major part of geography is getting out on field work, getting away on field trips, seeing what we've been learning about in the classroom in real life. We're so lucky to have so many opportunities for fieldwork on our doorstep, and we use those opportunities as much as we can. One of the most important things to ask yourself, though, is, are you curious and fascinated by the world around you? Do you ask questions of things? Do you ask why things occur? Why things have formed? What is the impact of something? If you are asking those questions regularly, you will do well in geography. Geography is all about the big questions that face the world today. Very, very relevant to what's going on in the world around us. The next few slides I'll show you examples of some of the questions. I'm just scratching the surface here of some of the stuff that we'll look at, but it'll show you some of the ideas and questions that we'll be looking at. We're looking at what shapes landscapes, what makes a landscape unique, and why is that landscape used by people in certain ways and not others? How is population and growth affected by a number of different factors? For example, what happens if you better educate the females of that population? How will that impact the growth of that population? What issues do our urban areas face? What's it like living in a favela, like the ones you've already studied this year in Brazil? We'll look at other slums around the world and understand what it's like, what's the living conditions like, and how do you improve the living conditions in slums. Look at how ecosystems operate and the impact people can have on ecosystems if they go in and change single parts of that ecosystem. Look at ways in which we can live in a sustainable way. Look at factors such as education in regards to affecting a country's development. What happens if a country education literacy rates is improved? How does that impact the country's development and potential? Look at food miles and the impact the food that we eat in this country has on a global perspective. How do we cope with an aging population? Countries such as us have this growing problem that the population is growing older. That requires lots of investment in care for this elderly population with less people contributing to that investment. So how do we cope with it? Look at the British climate. Why is it so predictable? Why is it different than somewhere at a similar latitude than us? Look at global warming, climate change. What is the evidence of it? How do we resolve it? What's the impact going to be? Michael Palin summarised geography quite well. It's geography students hold the key to the world's problems. Next few slides are headlines from various newspapers that show the value that university and employers have on geography, mainly due to its broad nature and the skills that are developed that can easily be applied to other subject areas. Now, on each of your Google Classroom pages, you'll have had this World of Opportunity document posted. This has been produced by the Royal Scottish Geographical Society, and in it contains a huge amount of detail as to what geography is, the benefits of studying geography, and what you would study progressing into S3 and beyond. These next few slides you might want to pause and have a look at and read through in a wee bit more detail, but it gives you an idea of some of the career pathways and areas that you could progress with geography if you're interested in it, with a focus on the skills. Again, I keep coming back to the transferable skills that are